Welcome back. I am Paige Elizabeth, and I'm here with Katie Pinsky talking about all things wellness as it pertains to women over 35. So, how are you doing today, Katie?
I'm doing well. No complaints. No complaints. The sun is shining, at least on the West Coast. So I'm happy.
Yeah, yesterday it was cloudy and then a little bit rainy here, but it's nice now.
How are you?
I'm doing well. I had an interesting week last week. My like a family friend. Like I've known the family my whole life. The brother's my dentist. One of the girls I've known since we were like literally we're a day apart in age. So together, really close. And the mother just adores me. She loves when I do the astrology. In fact, she stopped me because their sister died, their daughter died, right? And I went to the funeral on Saturday, and the mom was like, I can't believe the reading that you gave to Molly. She's like, oh my God. And I'm like, sorry, was it too accurate? And she was like, well, crap. Like, we kind of knew certain things, but the accuracy and the timing and everything. And I was like, yeah, it is not Molly's year. Like, it is just not her year, especially now that sister's passed, But like, it was just an interesting week. Mars went direct, and it felt like things were kind of being thrust upon us as opposed to us being able to initiate organically. Venus went retrograde, over the weekend. I'm
What does
already
that
having
mean?
I'm already having vivid dreams about men in my past. Like they're all showing up, and yeah. So which one? The Mars or the Venus retrograde?
Venus.
So both of these planets go retrograde like every other year. Mars is every 2 years, Venus is every year and a half. And with the Venus retrograde, it's the same as like every other retrograde. We're going to review, we're going to redo, we're going to reevaluate, like all of that re like calibrate energy. And so that's normal with a retrograde in general. Venus is our value system. So Venus is like what we want. It's the bright, shiny things in our life that we value, right? It's love, it's money, but it's essentially the value system. So I have a Venus in Aquarius, so I value independent space. I tend to come across as very aloof or detached. Freedom, big one for me, freedom. So because Aquarius is this kind of erratic, eccentric, untouchable energy, and I value my friendships, and Aquarius is known as being everyone's friend. Um, so. Yeah, and this is also a time where a lot of relationship stuff comes up because of the nature of Venus, right? So, like I said, I had a dream about one of my exes the other night, and I was like, he's the only one that, like, if I saw him on the street, I'd be like, I don't know you. Like, he's the only one. The rest, it's fine. Like,
Yeah.
we've separated, moved apart, and gone our separate ways, and it's not a big deal. He's the only one where I'm like, you were my narcissistic lesson. And if I never
Oh,
see you again, that's fine. Um, and then I had another dream about Keith. Keith, you went to high school with him. Keith
mm,
always shows up in my dreams. God
that's so
rest his
funny.
soul. He always shows up to remind me that he's there. And so I got like the 2 nights later, I had a dream about him. And so anyway, just I'm pretty psychic naturally, so it's not uncommon for me to like feel like I'm living in, a multi-layered experience
Yeah.
at the time.
It's funny you talk about like the relationship aspect of Venus. My best friend texted me yesterday morning. She's like, I had a dream that you married your ex-husband again. And I was like, not going to happen. But it's funny how people are talking about having dreams about significant others in other people's lives or themselves.
And Venus is a fabulous time to revisit aspects of a relationship. Okay. So there's the joke about getting back with your ex or something like that. Like Venus retrogrades are a fabulous time to revisit elements of a dynamic, a pre-established dynamic, whether it's superficial or deep is irrelevant. It's just
Yeah.
if you have any kind of history with that person, you're safe. Venus retrogrades are not the time to start something brand new with someone you just met, right?
Oh,
Like
okay.
if you just met that person, yesterday and you're just like, whatever, like this is amazing. Like this is not the time to actually start something new, and it will absolutely prove to not take off over time. Because it's not a
Good to
time
know.
for new. It's a time to take something that's kind of been there
Got it.
and you're like, well, what are we going to do with this, right? So
Reevaluate.
yeah, it's a great time when there's again, and it doesn't mean that you dated before. You could have been friends and now you're taking it to another level. You could have, been um acquaintances and now you want to become friends. Like it's a time to take something that's already established and to see what you want to do with it moving forward. Or it's a time to just break up, you know what I mean, to end things. But it's definitely very relationship oriented and then again value oriented. And now that Mars has gone direct, it's a good time to take action, right? So when Mars is retrograde, that's how we get what we want. And when Mars is retrograde, it's really hard to push projects and businesses and ideas and anything forward because it's just a time to pull back on action. So now that there's that forward movement with Mars, we can move forward and have the energy support the process better, which is good. So,
That's always good.
but I think it was a dicey week for a lot of people just because of the shiftiness of it. And like I said,
Yeah.
now it's like me and Annie and Melissa, like there's three girls that we all grew up together. From the time we were little, and now we've all lost a sibling, and it's just an interesting club to belong to as peers and lifelong friends.
But at least having each other, because it is something that until you experience it, somebody will never understand the feeling and the grief.
No, absolutely. And the thing is, like, the one thing I kept saying to all of them, I'm like, you're about to have the hardest year of your life. Because when someone is older, even if they die younger, like let's say you wanted your dad to live to 80, but he died at 70. 70 is a long time. It's a good life. Um, they're ahead of you. It's to be expected. Like that's the natural rhythm and order of things.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, it's always hard when someone passes, but at the same time, if it's kind of like part of that natural rhythm, we accept it better. When someone dies prematurely, out of the blue, wasn't expecting it, nothing was coming up to it. There's no cancer, there was no, like, oh, I have this disease and I'm gonna be gone in 2 years. Like it wasn't like that, right? Like for all of
Yeah.
us, like Tommy shot himself, Russ died of an overdose, and Jamie, she had a heart issue, so it was like a heart attack, but I mean, for the sake of simplifying it, it was essentially a heart attack, right?
Yeah.
And so no one expected any of these passings, and when you lose someone prematurely, it's a shock to the system. It throws off everything. And they were in such good spirits, and I'm like, oh, you all are in so much shock right now. And so it's just hard because like what happens is again, like when my grandmother died at 95, I was like, finally she went home. With my brother, it was like you find things and you're like this, like I would find stuff that I would have of his because after he died, you take it, you clean up their car, their house, whatever.
Yeah.
And I would have moments where I'm like, this belongs in his house, this belongs in his car. And it would like flip me out that I would lose presence for a moment and realize, oh, he's gone. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Can't call him or I can't hear his voice again. Or like you would see their pets or the first birthday, holidays. It's really triggering. And so, um, just they have a long road ahead. It's just begun. Her ending is just their beginning in terms of what this is going to look like moving forward. And it's really, it's uncomfortable. And unless you've dealt with a premature death, it's different.
And I have not experienced it. And so and it is one of those feelings of like, I'm kind of waiting for something to happen to somebody because you're like, it's been too level for too long that you're almost living with a every time the phone rings or you get a text message and you think, oh gosh, okay, this is going to be the thing. This is going to be the thing. And that's a horrible state to live in, but like that we naturally have to live
Yeah.
in a state of being prepared for bad news.
Yeah, I mean, again, when it's not something that you're anticipating, it's just shock to the system.
Yeah.
And it 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 changes your physiology. Like it changes your immune system. It changes your endocrine system. It changes like grief is hard on the body. Really hard on the body.
Harder than people think.
And that's where I think you probably can relate because you went through a divorce, which is the same essentially to the nervous system.
Yeah, we've spoken about how grief, it's not black and white. It's not like somebody dies, this, that, the other. It's like it can be the death of a relationship, the death of a friendship, just change. You grieve what was, whatever that was.
Right. And again, the physiology. Your sleep will be different, your energy will be different, your brain will be foggy, your digestion will get disrupted. As a female, your cycles can get disrupted. The just it yeah, you're fragmented.
It's amazing how much environmental impacts your your monthly flow. It takes nothing to just throw it out of whack, and it shows the power of hormones.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I remember having that discussion with Melissa. Like, how does your body feel? What are you experiencing? Like, and going through that because we lost our brothers within a month of each other. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah, those are just things you don't think you're gonna have in common with your peers, like your friends. So, but to pull this full circle, right? I ran into a friend of mine that I've known since junior high, and the woman's gorgeous. I mean, she's just one of the prettiest women I know in person, and she has always made a point to stay on point. Her sister trimmed my hair, added some layers.
Great.
And so they come from a really big family. And Liz is about 12 years older than Sarah. And Sarah, who cut my hair, and I was like, yeah, because she's like, you look so great, because I hadn't seen her in a while. And I was like, yeah, aging gracefully is a full-time job. Like it takes a lot of work. And she goes, yeah, that's like Liz. She's like, Liz is the one in our family who just always wants to be on point, and she makes an effort to always look her best and do her best. And I was sharing that with Liz when I saw her at the funeral, and she's like, yeah, I just don't get it. She's like, I don't proclaim to be exceptional anyway. I just am consistent. And I think that that is like that right there is it, right? Like consistency is everything, like everything. And so today we really want to discuss the power of just like small habits and
Mhm.
how just making a small effort every single day will actually lead to huge changes.
Absolutely. It reminds me of that book. I don't know if you've read it, but I'm sure people have heard of it, Atomic Habits.
Mm-mm.
It's a good book, kind of explaining the theory behind it of just, atomic, small habits, ritual, daily type thing. And it's just doing the small, whatever it is, just a small, small habit. It could be, they even reference just making your bed in the morning,
Mhm.
but just as you do it after 2 weeks, I think that like all these studies have been done of like it takes 2 weeks to establish a habit. And it's sort of like after that, you don't even think about it. It's part of your daily routine, and it's structure which provides, just like a healthy mindset. But it starts with just doing something small, whatever it is.
Well, yeah, any powerful change you want to make, You don't go to the gym twice and lift heavy and expect a change. You go every day. And
And you build, you build upon it's like with lifting, if you've never lifted, you start with 5 pounds. And then once you're kind of acclimated, then you push yourself, okay, to 8 pounds. Okay. And you build, but you can't just go from never lifting a weight to lifting a 20-pound weight. It's just, you have to build, and building takes consistency.
well, but I think people get overwhelmed by the idea of like they're thinking about the outcome in their brain, right? And
Mhm.
as though it's like climbing Everest or something. Like
And
I
it
gotta
can
climb
feel
this
like
mountain.
that.
And you don't. It's not like that. Like integrating, especially like for our program, for example, there's a lot of changes that happen, but they're done in phases and they're done in small increments every day. Like there's small commitments that you make to have a big outcome at the end. And that's by design, right? Because if you do like like a major commitment at once, you tend to overwhelm the system and then you quit. Right.
Mhm.
And so knowing that, it's like it's really important to have things in bite-sized pieces so that way it's digestible, and you can continue to show up and integrate it, right?
Mhm.
I have been learning Italian for 5 years now. And I started, so, I mean, well, let me just back up. I used to teach in Italy and I would listen to the translator and I was like, should repeat after me in Italian. And I would think, I love that. And I realized, I was like, the language makes the culture. Like more than anything else, the language
Yeah.
makes the culture. And I really just wanted to learn. So I hired myself a tutor back in the end of 2019 and started working with her and worked with her until I left Vegas in the beginning of 2022. And ever since then, it's been like self-study, right? So I will translate, like I'll write something out in English, translate it to Italian, or I'll take something that's already in Italian and translate it to English. I will listen to a podcast. I like Coffee Break Italian. I don't do Duolingo, but I do love Coffee Break Italian. And she recommended that. Um, and now I'm watching Netflix in Italian, and it's the best. Like it is so good. I'm not into watching TV or series or anything, but I have so gotten into these Italian series. They're filmed in Italy. They speak Italian in the series. This is not dubbed into Italian. No, this is Italian.
Oh, Italian, Italian. Got
Yeah,
it.
and then it's subtitled in Italian as well. So that way, like I can actually, because at first I was trying to just listen, but sometimes they'd speak so fast. So to see it
Yes.
written out, I can make the connection better. And if I miss a word, I can pause it and then Google Translate it right there. But like I only do like 15, 20 minutes a day. That's it. And yet my Italian has come so far and gotten so much better just from the brain, just integrating that every day for years.
But again, it started with just a sentence, a word, just, translating one word, just, getting your feet wet. And then you build from there. But if somebody were to tell you, hey, you need to learn Italian, it would feel like, oh my God, that's overwhelming. Where do I even start?
Well, what's funny is that I have not been back to Italy since before COVID, but I've been, let's see, Costa Rica, Panama, Nicaragua, El Salvador, Colombia, Cuba. Like I've been to all these Spanish-speaking countries. And from integrating the Italian in, it's pulled the Spanish forward because I
Yeah.
had 5 years of Spanish when I was younger. And so now when I go to these Spanish-speaking countries, the Spanish comes out so fresh now, and I can jump into the language quickly when I didn't use my Spanish for years. So that's what I find really interesting is that like I'm not even really using the Italian like in conversation. I'll go to a
Uh-huh.
speaking country, show up, and boom, the Spanish shows up. Now, don't get me wrong, sometimes Italian shows up too, but you know, like for the most part, I'm able to jump back in because my brain it's fresh. It's like I said,
Yeah.
it's pulled a lot of that memory forward for me. because it has to learn Italian.
But the
That
key is that,
process.
but you have to use it. Do you know what I mean? It's like use it or lose it. So it's you do those small things every day because you know if you don't, it's almost like starting over if you go
Hmm.
X amount of time not doing it.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, but the consistency. And I'm not like, oh, am I there yet? Am I like totally like fluent? I don't even have that thought. I just focus on the practice,
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. Just a little bit each day. And it's hard because somebody could just discount being like 15 minutes. What are you going to learn in 15 minutes? But it's looking at 15 minutes over the course of years.
A lot of
It
time.
really, it's a huge accomplishment.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And like with clients, like I used to teach yoga, right? And people would struggle, for example, to start a meditation practice because they would jump right to this, like, oh, but I don't know how to like sit still and empty my brain and do that part. It's like, you don't start there. You don't start there. You are going to go sit in timeout for 5 minutes. That's all you're going to do. You're just going to set a timer and sit in a corner for 5 minutes. We just want to get you into the habit of building the practice first.
I've never done meditation because it's always felt very like overwhelming to me, which is like the opposite of what it's supposed to do. Because where do you start and how do you just sit
Exactly.
there and
And you don't do
it,
anything. You just sit there like a toddler for 5 minutes. That's all I want you to do. Get into the habit first. We're not even going to discuss the other components until you have made a habit of putting yourself in timeout for 5 minutes a day. Because we have to get the habits in place to get to
yeah,
the meat. Like if we can't just jump to the meat without establishing a groundwork. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And so this is why, like, when you're creating changes, it starts with those small bites, right? Like I'm gonna do a timeout until I'm used to that. Then maybe I'll do 10 minutes. Now once I'm in the habit of just doing that, showing up and like making that time for myself, now we'll focus on the next step, which is like let's just breathe. Let's just focus on our breath now, right? And maybe you do that for a few months. You just focus on the breath part, right? Then we get
Hmm.
into the next part, which is like let's observe the body. Let's start observing the environment while we're breathing, right? Okay, then you graduate to the next part, which is can you observe the mind on top of like that you start building on it, right? And so the next
Exactly.
thing you know, you're meditating.
We all need some meditation.
But it's again you just small steps.
Small steps.
I
And
think,
it,
sorry, go ahead.
oh no, no, I was going to say, and again, for people, it can be anything that you want to change in your life. It's not like if you wanted to say, oh my gosh, it's been a dream of mine to run a marathon. Well, to run a marathon, do you walk? You know what I mean? Do you work out? So you're not going to just start running one day. It's, you know what, just take a stroll around the neighborhood and start researching running trails and sneakers and like just do something that like satisfies that interest, but is just kind of dipping your toe in. And then you just start, okay, now we've done the walk around the neighborhood. Now let's jog for 30 seconds and then go on and off. It's like whatever it is, it can be anything that somebody wants it to be.
Well, like with speaking of running, yeah, I was 16 when I started running, but I didn't start out running an hour straight. I
You
would do
can't.
intervals, so 5 minutes on, 5 minutes off, 5 minutes on, 5 minutes off. And then 10 minutes on, 5 minutes off, 10 minutes on. Like I built up to being able to run consistently for a long time. Everyone always asks me why I don't run a marathon. I have no desire to run a marathon, like none. I enjoy running. I'm a great
For the
distance
sake,
runner, but I don't do it I'm not looking to, I don't know.
you don't need a prize.
But if that's what you are trying to build up to, that's what you would do.
Yeah, because for some people it's more about um literally having that finish line of like, okay, I what am I working towards? And so if a marathon can feel like, oh, that's the thing, the tangible thing that you're working towards. But for others, it's like if you wanted to lose some weight by eating healthier, it's you're not going to like just completely change everything one day. It's like, okay, it's more attainable to say, okay, for breakfast, I'm going to swap out this one thing for something else. You keep the other things, but it's like you just start making those changes and then work in more of those changes. And then one day you have that ideal, healthy, balanced diet.
Well, speaking of getting healthy, you do, depending on how long it's been since you have been healthy, I guess, you want to take a micro approach to it because you can overwhelm the system if you're really toxic. So let's say that you vape and you drink a lot. You're not going to do a detox. We're not doing that.
Yeah.
You're just going to eliminate first the vaping, then the drinking, or first the whatever. We're going to eliminate one,
Mhm.
then the other, because you can put your body into a healing crisis. And this is where too many toxins flood the system at one time. So you don't even want to overwhelm the system. You want to work in small sizes so that way it's
Exactly.
effective.
And like if you go and see a doctor to talk about this, it's what they'll tell you is, listen, you don't have to quit cold turkey. It's just, okay, what are you drinking right now? Okay, if you're drinking some, because some people, it seems like after COVID, it established this, negative drinking pattern. Okay, if you're having 3 glasses of wine at night, you know what I mean? Just try to cut back to one. It's not like, hey, stop, because then it's all you're going to think about. It's just more, hey, cut back to one, and then, try to do every other day, and then you build and build and build. But it's just don't have that last drink of the night. You know what I mean? Just kind of start there, and then you'll start to feel better, and you'll see the changes, and it will become a habit.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, and again, like you could, if you're focused on the process, you can't lose. If you're only ever focused on the outcome, it's like water, it's like watching water boil. Like,
I love that saying. I actually use it for so many things. It's like you're it's never going to boil if
yeah.
you're watching it. And so it's just you put it on the stove, turn on the stove, fill the water pot, and then you just got to walk away. You just got to let it do its thing, but committed to it.
Well, and I feel like that is one of the best things about having had a yoga practice, from 22 to 38. I practiced Ashtanga yoga 22 to 38, sorry, 16 to 38, 22 years. I practiced Ashtanga yoga and it's a discipline and you just tack on more and more over time and then you just build and build and build and your strength gets better and your mobility gets better and your focus gets better and you have ebbs and flows, sure, but like it taught me a lot about processes and discipline and consistency. And I always say, like, one of my mottos is show up anyway, do it anyway.
And trust the process. If you don't trust it, if you second guess, if you do all these things, it's like just trust it. And really, what do you have to lose? You know, you're if you feel like crap anyways, remember you choose your hard. It's hard to stay unhealthy, lack of fitness, but it's also hard to wake up in the morning and do the workout and make the changes. But it's what's going to give you the better outcome, So just trust the process and commit consistency.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, back to our peers, it's like I look at so many people our age and I'm complaining because I don't like how I look because I'm going through this building bulking phase in my lower body and I just feel like thicker. I just feel thicker. My hip dips are more obvious. My cellulite seems to be more obvious. My butt doesn't have a better shape. It's just bigger. You know what I mean? From all this building, and it's so frustrating. And yet I know that if I compare myself to my peers, if I like do that, I'm way ahead of the game. Like I get that, you know what I mean? So I'm in the process right now where it's like, ooh,
But
you
it's all
know,
relative. Do you know what I mean? It's like somebody could look at that and be like, "Oh my God, Paige, but you're beautiful, you're stunning, you do have an amazing body." But it's like, but it's relative for you. It's what you're going through. It's what you've been working towards. It's your world. And so I hate when people can throw shade at something like that because it's like it's all relative and
right.
you're allowed to
But
have
what I'm
those
saying is I
feelings.
have to trust the process right now. And it's like, I just want to go back and be like, can I just get my size back? Because right now my pants are all a little tight around the hip area. Like, can I just get that back? And I can't. I have to go forward, right? So I have to continue to just show up and do the work
That's
anyway and
mhm.
let things unfold. But if I never get through this part, I never get through this part. Like if I don't just continue, then this is always going to be a resistance point that I'm fucking up against. So I might as well just keep going. I mean, God bless my onesies, but like, because they're so comfortable and they don't remind me how big my butt's getting in the process. But like,
I mean, I love a good onesie and a caftan.
but but so it's not like I guess my point is that even if you are good at discipline or consistency, there's still going to be those points where you're like, "Ooh, this is part of it now." Like,
Yeah.
great. Yes, absolutely. But keep going, keep going, keep going.
Because if it were easy, everybody would be doing it. Do you know what I mean? It's you're going to face challenges and whatever it is that you're working through towards, but you just have to trust.
I mean, beyond the aesthetic, it's the health part, right? Like, that's the other thing I don't relate to with our peers who aren't making the effort. The expression choose your hard. Okay, so getting up and starting my day off right and making sure I get my fitness in and eating clean. That's a commitment. It's a choice I've made. It's hard.
Yeah.
But to me, that's easier than knowing that I have an obscene amount of fat to lose, knowing that I'm on the verge of diabetes, knowing that I've got a liver that is not filtering as well because I drink too much, for example, or all the other things. To me, that's harder. I get that's just me, but to me, that's harder because life does just, I think we all know we're there. It's like it doesn't get easier with time. And it's not going to get easier. The body's going to continue to try to work
Yep.
against us as we get
Mhm.
older.
It only gets to more difficult. So if you're not making the changes now, that's how I see it. Is like if I don't do it now, I know I want to do it, but if I wait a year, it's going to be twice as hard to do it then. So just start doing the small changes now.
Right. And again, we're just talking small changes. Like if you were to say eliminate one bad food, drink, whatever from your diet, eliminate one, maybe drink an extra glass of water a day,
Mhm.
and do some form of exercise for 10, 15 minutes. I mean, and watch what'll happen in 6 months. You know what I'm saying?
But for some people, it's like they just have the blinders on of like 15 minutes is going to do nothing. You know what I mean? Like that sort of pessimistic attitude of like, what's that going to do? That's not going to do anything. But it's like, but if you were to look at a calendar though and add that up, it just you see the bulk. You see how it will add up. And it's even one of those things of like, okay, we 15 minutes. And even if it's like the literally the last thing you want to do and it feels so impossible to do, just start it. And if after 5 minutes it still feels that way, then just do the 5 minutes. Do you know what I mean? Even within that task, you can break it down to a mini task. It's like just do something. Just do
Well,
something.
one of the things that a lot of our clientele struggles with is confidence. And yet dedicating yourself to a few good habits a day or one good habit a day is a confidence builder.
Absolutely.
It's not, so you get
Absolutely.
additional benefits. Like, I remember years ago, this is before I ever became a coach, and I was talking to a friend who I went to high school with. She broke her foot and she was a single mom and she was living with her dad. Like, she just was like, all just these handicaps in her life. And she felt really overwhelmed by the idea of change. And I was just like, Allison, you just have to start with where you're at, with what's accessible. You can't reach for something that's not available right now. Your foot's broken. You don't have any money. We can't reach for those things. We got to
Yeah.
reach for things to build up your self-esteem right now. Once your self-esteem is built up and you create more confidence, then we start to build and we reach for other things. But like to be like, I want to move out and be healed, and that's a stretch. That's a stretch right now. Let's not go there. You're going to overwhelm the brain. Let's not even do that. Right? Let's go for a walk every, because she could still go for a walk even though she had this broken foot. Like she could still do things. So I was like, let's just start with some basics, right? To build up the self-esteem, the confidence, and then we go from there. And I don't think people recognize that part. They want the confidence before they take the action. It's like, no, you have to take the action to get the confidence.
Yep.
It's always the action precedes the result, like every single time.
Yeah.
And like, I was thinking about this yesterday, whereas like, because of course, when you're bringing people on, there's that closing process, and there's always that like fear part. And it's like, I was thinking about it, and I'm like, I have every person that I've ever worked with has had one regret after they made the change, the big change, and they've all had the same regret. You know what it is?
That they wish they started sooner.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone has the exact same regret across the board. Why didn't I do this sooner? That's it. No one
And
is
I
like,
think
damn it, I started this too soon. Like fall would have been better. Not a single person is ever like, I should have deliberated more. No, they're like, God damn it, why didn't I do this a year ago?
because it's the fear of the unknown.
Hmm.
It's the fear. And what does fear do? It keeps you in a place that is safe, which is your current habit.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, people want to control. They want to feel in control. Okay, let's feel in control then. Let's work on what we can control.
That's the biggest question.
Let's work on
What
what we
can you
can control.
control? What can you control today? What is the thing that you can change, you actively making a decision? And you just start there. It doesn't have to be this big, big thing. It's just the one little thing. And confidence comes from completed tasks, whatever the task is. It's the best feeling to be able to check that box, put a line through it.
Well, even if you just, it doesn't have to be done a certain way either. Like, let's say that some days you don't have as much strength or
Huh?
whatever, right? Sometimes when I'm learning Italian, I'm like, that sucked. Like, I don't feel like I learned anything today. But you know what? I showed up. I showed up, right?
It,
Again,
yep.
that builds the process of showing up for yourself, just completely rewires that relationship to yourself. Again, bridging that gap. Now I have more confidence, I have more strength, I have more resilience. I don't feel like such an imposter. Like
Yeah.
it closes the gap on so many habits or so many, sorry, mindset blockages too.
And also it's and when you do take that task, you don't focus on, like you said, don't focus on what you didn't get done, but what you did get done. Even though you had a crappy session that day, you still showed up to the session. And so it's just which then sets you up for success for tomorrow. Because if you skip a day, you just then will have a tendency the next day to be like, you know what? I'll get to it tomorrow. I'll get to it tomorrow. So it's like focus on, okay, maybe you didn't get the 30-minute workout in, but you got 15 minutes in. So it's focus on the positive.
And this is a big part of the program, right? Because it's like women who don't put themselves first while they're in that reflective phase, they have to create a practice of some sort, whether it's meditation, gardening, yoga, walking, you pick it, you name it, something that you show up for yourself that you do. That's it. And it's to rewire that relationship to yourself. That's the whole purpose because that's where you build the bigger stuff. If you lay the foundation and you have that relationship to you and you're like, I'm doing this for me, this is my time for me, you
And
know?
it seems as though a lot of people have a hard time saying no to other people. They'll use the excuse of like, well, I can't do that because I had to do this for my husband, this for my kids, this for my friend, this for work. It's like, but you're going to be miserable after a certain period of time when you are doing everything for everybody else and then not doing anything for yourself. Why do you think you're not worthy of saying no to something to then give that time for yourself?
Well, also like again, just back to that process, right? Because that's what people do. They show up for others and they don't show up for themselves, and then they wonder why they don't have a good self-esteem or a good rapport with themselves, or they lack that confidence. There
I
there
think it's the
is a
happiest.
if you're not showing up for you, there are cells in your body that will eventually feel completely resentful and betrayed by that, right?
Absolutely.
So it's about um again, it's just about reconnecting to you reestablishing that relationship, making sure that you're making time for yourself and making time to, for me to just watch Netflix and just binge out on random stuff is not the same as me being like, okay, this is my time to actually focus on the screen and watch the words go by and look at the Italian. You know what I mean? Because one is an educational process where I'm expanding myself as a human being, and the other one is just distraction from
Distraction,
myself as a human being. And there's a big difference.
escapism.
Mhm. And escapism and self-nurturing or self-care or self like educating like the
Mhm.
self or creating that discipline, they're not the same thing.
It's so true. And as you're talking, I was thinking about how some of the happiest people I know are people who say no the most, that are very, have no problem saying, you know what? Nope, that doesn't work for me. Nope, here's my boundary. Nope, 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 nope. And they are the happiest people I know.
People don't give you what you want by you giving them the freedom to negotiate less. They don't. They're going to give you less. I love Hormozy, like Alex Hormozy. So like, and as an entrepreneur, and I'm like, there's the business side of what I do. There's the coaching side, there's the business side. And Alex always says, and I love this, he's like, when I'm on a call and someone's like, can you do it for cheaper? He always says, no, but I can do it for more. And I love that because it's like, yeah, I mean, if this is too much for you, that's fine. I can make it harder for you, but I'm not going to water down myself to make it easier for you. No.
And it's all too often. You realize it's just like a drip, drip, drip. You give somebody an inch, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, it's a
It's
mile.
you, and the only person who suffers is you. Like it's an erosion of your spirit, your soul, everything. There was a meme I came across. I gotta post it, and it said, "I want to start invoicing people for wasting my time." And I had a client recently. Now, it was the only man that I had made an exception to work for, not inside my program because it's exclusive to women, but outside my program. And I was just like, I'd made the decision a while ago. I don't want to work with men. I don't like working with men. I find that the majority of them are interested in me, not my brain or my education that I have to give. And so it just to not work with them as a whole was kind of the best decision. Of course, not all men, but like most of y'all. So this guy literally was a time suck. And that's exactly what I did. I invoiced him for wasting my time. And I was like, if you'd like to continue the conversation, you have an invoice to pay. Have a nice day. And he paid it. But I was like, I'm not going to talk to you any further unless this is paid. You have disrespected my boundaries on too many occasions, texting me, emailing me for things outside of our sessions, and this needs to be taken care of. I'm not, you know what I mean?
Mhm. And you're happy.
It feels so good to say no. It feels
Once you
so
get in the
good to
habit.
say no to someone who's not honoring you. It feels so good. It's a win for you. It's a win for the part of yourself that needed to hear you stand up for her.
And so many people are afraid of that two letters, they're so afraid of it to use it. And it's so simple.
And they
And you're just,
chronically say no to themselves as a result.
that's the irony is like, you do know by doing that, yeah, you're saying no to yourself. So it's like, if you can do that so easily, let's just flip it.
A huge part of breaking up with people pleasing and codependency is creating that relationship with yourself. Because the stronger that rapport gets, the easier it gets to say no.
I was just going to say, once you get used to it, it's like, it's who you are. It just becomes a part of your, this is me, this is for me, and take it or leave it.
Yeah, so whatever it is like that you want to change, you know what I mean? You can't fast forward and be like, I want to be 100 pounds lighter. I mean, you can think that that's the objective. Obviously, I want to get there, but like in the meantime, you just have to commit to a few things, right? And then see what happens, give it time, let it play out, and then integrate some more, build more confidence, right?
Yep.
And that is how you create a new reality. It's the small steps, the small bites.
The atomic habits.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I can't state this enough. It all goes back to that relationship with yourself.
Mhm. And so you take this time as you're listening to this, for each person who is listening, you just ask yourself, what is the thing that I can control that I could spend 2 minutes on today, whether it be thinking about a healthier meal for dinner or doing 20 squats. You know what I mean? Just what's the small thing that doesn't take a lot of time that you can do for yourself?
Well, and we all have the time. To say that you don't is a lie. Pull up your phone and look at how much time went onto your social media in the last day or week. You have the time. Don't lie to
Yeah.
yourself.
And you have the power. You have the control.
Yeah. So again, you got to just start tiny. 5 minutes, time out.
I need to do that. That will be my challenge to myself.
The time
Because
is
we
there.
all need it. We all need to challenge ourselves. Nobody's perfect and nobody has it all figured out. And if you're not challenging yourself, you're not growing. And if you're not growing, you're going to passively start to fade away. That's how I see it. So take the challenge. I take the challenge to do 5 minutes of putting myself in timeout in that chair over there.
Mhm. And set a timer. Just set a timer. There's so many times in my life where I'm like, you're just gonna do this and set a timer, and then when it goes off, you're done.
Mhm.
You know?
Okay, so I'm going to take that challenge. What do you want to challenge yourself to?
Challenge myself to right now. Let's see. I don't know, because I do so much of this already.
I know you do. I was like, right when I said it to you, I was like, well, you're pretty perfect. So,
Oh, I'm not perfect, but I'm definitely committed. Um, I mean, I do. I set timers for everything, like even as someone who works for herself. I will do X amount of hours a day, regardless, that will go into my business. Like I just commit to so much time a day. I mean, hours, not minutes, hours. Um, and so I'm gonna have to think about that one.
Challenge.
A small thing that I can do right now. I have been trying to be kinder, and then I get stuck behind someone who can't make a right hand turn, and I'm like, blew that one.
And but actually, Paige, that's a perfect example though of like we think it has to be
No,
something.
exactly. Like I'm gonna be nicer to people when I'm out and about, and then I get stuck behind the one person. I'm like, it's a right hand turn. What is your problem? Nobody's coming.
And so it's like you take that, okay, that's my challenge to myself. That's my challenge to myself. But it can be that simple. Do you know what I mean? It's like the
That should
and
be
it
the
will
one
make
I keep trying with.
but it's exact but that's exactly I think the point of the exercise is that, we think it has to be food, exercise, something like that. When really it's more just
I'll be
like
nicer. Just
I just gotta be a little bit nicer. And you know what? That's gonna make me calmer, happier, and you know what I mean? So it's like it's that's actually it was meant to be. That was the perfect example, I think, because it showed that, and for anybody who's listening,
it's look like there's contrast there for me. Like that is an area where it's like, woo, girl, you could really.
I know I was driving last night and I
Every time
yelled.
I try, though, I get stuck behind that one person who, like, but again, that just goes to show the second you go to integrate a habit, that's when it becomes the most challenging. Because not only are they like not turning, but then they finally turn and they're driving like a slug. And I'm like, really? This is what makes the car I do. Let me get around you. Um, but yeah, so like the second you go to integrate a change, trust me, you're gonna see your contrast real quick.
But then it's good and it reminds you, and you just become more aware of it and progress.
We all have our blind spots. Don't let her convince you that I have it all figured out. Trust me, you have not driven with me.
I know nothing brings out a feral side of somebody than when they're driving.
The light is green and you're still not turning. I don't understand what is going on. This is insane. Okay. Deep
Ugh,
breaths, Paige. Just deep breath.
deep.
Yeah, trust me.
Another dull moment.
Trust me. So I will say I've gotten a lot more patient with drivers who are behind me.
Oh, that's a good one.
I've gotten a lot more patient with drivers who like find me to be the irritation because I'm like, yeah, I know, I can be you too. So that one I've actually improved upon. I used to get just as annoyed with them, but now like unless they're being recklessly dangerous or something, I'm like, okay, I get it. Like
Yeah. No, that's so funny. Yeah, because I was at a light yesterday and it was like, it literally just turned green and somebody honked behind me. And I was like, I livid because I thought it literally, between the time it took for me to switch my foot from the brake to the pedal, and it was like, then it just made me want to stop and not go because I was like, and I was like, why? That is so petty of myself.
trust me, I know. I have gotten better primarily because I can be distracted. Like if I'm sitting at a light a long time, I can end up not paying attention. And so if I get honked at, I'm like, oh, thanks. Okay, like I didn't, I'm on TikTok, waiting for the light to change. So I have gotten more patient with people behind me, but people in front of me, I'm still struggling.
Well, we're all just working towards our better selves.
Definitely. Well, thank you for joining us this week. As usual, it's always fun to have these discussions and, Katie for joining. I appreciate it. But yeah, if you're looking to make some changes, don't think so big. Just think small. Small does lead up to the big. So
You can do it.
Plus, we got to build some self-esteem and self-confidence so that you want to do these things. You got
It's
this.
all we do. I can do my 5 minute meditation, build upon myself, and we can all be better.
Absolutely. So, until next time, guys. Bye.